Yeah. All right, so we should be live right now, but before we kind of get things underway, could you maybe give like a brief introduction about you and about yourself for some people that may not know too much about you?
Yeah, I'm Krysten Peak. I am the NBA draft analyst for Yahoo Sports, but I also cover basketball on all three levels. I cover high school and AAU basketball, and then college one and dones and the NBA draft. And sometimes I sneak up into like the rookie class and NBA playoffs, like I'm doing right now, covering the Jazz in the postseason. So I cover basketball on every level.
And this question, this is kind of like a weird question to start off with. Like this is more of like a middle of the interview question, but it's kind of the first thing that came into my head. I know like when we were at Geico Nationals, like I would go and interview these players, but I would see like you were just talking to them, like you weren't even recording yourself. Like you were just having a conversation with them. So I'm just curious, like why were you just talking to them instead of like interviewing them and doing stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, most of these guys at the high school level, once they hit Geico Nationals, I've already interviewed them multiple times on the record or on camera. And so when I see them at an event like that, and there's like music blasting,
Oh
and
yeah, yep.
there's not enough time for me to like set up my camera and like sit them down and interview them. So it's more just like checking in, letting them know, like with Caleb Houston, it's like, okay, I'm going to see you at Michigan next year. Like, you play great. Like, you and I are going to talk again, next year and ahead of the draft, and just kind of checking in so they remember that I'm still there. Same with Kennedy Chandler going to Tennessee. Like, I've known Kennedy forever. So, yeah, I'm just checking in so they know that like I'm there. I'm still supporting them. I'm still, I'm following their career. And so when they see me again, it's like, oh yeah, I know her. It's a familiar face.
Yeah, and that's definitely like even for me, like at that event, I feel like I definitely could have gotten a lot more out of it, but at the same time, like that was my first humongous, like that was my first ESPN like level event.
Yes.
So it's like just knowing, just that experience of being there and knowing like how I got like a few phone numbers. Like I interviewed, did one with Ted Embrick that was doing like the play-by-play stuff. So just one person. Now I'm more comfortable at going to those events. So I guess you could say like even just that first experience was, even though I could have gotten more out of it, definitely still valuable for sure.
No, honestly, it's all about repetition. Like I remember the first AAU tournament I went to, and I'm just like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know that there would be like a ton of college coaches there. I didn't know that I needed to know the college coaches. I didn't know the players I was interviewing. It was all, I was my coworker, and he's like, okay, we're gonna talk to this person. He's a 5-star. He's going here. He's going here. And I was just like I didn't know what to expect. So with repetition and you continue to go to these events, you get more used to it and you get more comfortable. So you're able to get the most out of it.
Yeah. And I guess I did remember, like, I know a lot of the interviews you do, like, I guess one of my big advantages, even though I'd love to do what you do, I know something that has helped me probably a lot throughout my career is that at my interviews, usually, like, I told my Geico Nationals, they weren't going to let me do it. And I was like, it only takes 1 minute. And they're like, fine, like, you have 1 minute. And it took me a minute. That's kind of like my thing because it's quick, easy, like convenient for everyone. But I guess like doing those kind of longer interviews, I mean, it's one thing to be doing it like sitting down online, but it's like I'm in the comfort of my own home. It's like being in person, you got a camera right in front of you. Just how do you, like how do you do like a good long in-person interview?
Honestly, where I get the most out of an interview is if I go to a practice and not an event. So if I go to an AU practice or a high school practice, usually, and then we sit down afterwards, like they're relaxed, they just practice, they don't have the game on their mind, they don't have anything else on the mind. So it's easier to get more out of the players, like in that sort of situation. And that took forever for me. That took about 4 years for me to realize. And it's like, even if I had to go to like, I went like Dior Johnson and Josh Christopher. I remember their coach was like, okay, we practice at 6:30 in the morning. You can interview them afterwards. So it's like, so you want to go to practice because you want to see what they're working on so you can relay it in the interview. But It's like, okay, I have to hit the road at 6 a.m. to get to their practice, sit and watch their practice, and then be able to interview them comfortably in their own gym without a game on their mind. Because here's the thing, like if a player loses a game in like an AAU or a high school tournament or a high school game, they don't want to talk to you. It's just, I mean, they just don't. So you try to avoid that. And I found going to practices or going to even like a scrimmage, you get the very most out of players.
Yeah, that definitely is that definitely is
fun. My dog is chewing on something.
No worries.
No. All right, I'm back. I saw him chewing on something. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no worries. But that is, I mean, for me, like, I'm also my school's like manager, so I don't really have time to go to practices. But that is smart because it's like I would be at games, like I was at Holiday Hoops Giving, and it was Grayson versus Wasatch Academy, and I forgot there was one team that I think I wanted Grayson to win really bad because I wanted to interview their guys more than the Wasatch guys, and because I was at a game, like I knew, luckily both teams I interviewed both, it wasn't a big deal. But I was like screaming on the side. Like, I'm trying to film it. I'm like, look, come on, like please win, because when they lose, like you're not going to talk to them, and
nobody wants to talk to you.
I don't even want to risk that. So that's definitely smart for sure. And just a really basic question, but I just love hearing everyone's different story. Like I don't care. I know everyone asks the question, but it's just always a good response. So just what got you started on this journey that got you to where you are today?
What's what?
Like what got you started, on this journey that, got you to where you are today?
So I have worked at Yahoo for about 14 years. And I worked at Yahoo News. I went over to Australia. I worked at Yahoo Australia for a couple years. And then I came back. I worked on MMA and boxing. And then Yahoo bought Rivals.com. And when that acquisition happened, they were trying to like find people to cross-pollinate to try to cover the different football and basketball recruiting. And I played college basketball. And so I raised my hand. I was like, you guys are going to pay me to cover college basketball? Like, I'm in, Oh, sorry. That was my puppy. But honestly, the first year I covered it, I was a fish out of water. Like I didn't realize it was such a big thing to cover basketball at that space. And I didn't know about the rankings. And Andrew Wiggins, his draft class was like the first time that I got into it. And Julius Randle was in that class. So it's talking to those guys. And then, slowly but surely, and you'll get there. Like you learn the lay of the land, all the big tournaments, you get to know the different like executives that, sorry, he's chewing on one more thing, that are important. Gary. No. And so you learn from just time, and that's what happened. And I feel like that's what will happen with you and the next generation coming up. And for me, it's like, I am the lone female in the space, and I want to do anything to try to like break the mold and just shatter any expectations about especially women working in this space, but also like younger people coming up. And I want to try to like help you guys out as much as possible, because it's not an easy space to be in. Grassroots is messy.
Yeah.
And, trying to follow college recruiting and figure out where these kids are thinking about going and trying to get them to talk about things they don't want to is tough. And so I want to help out the next generation as much as possible, because it hasn't been easy, but I love it. And I love being in the gym, and I love hoops, and I love the players, and I love getting to know their families and who they are. So it's just been the greatest experience for me.
And something that I always try to do, like you said, that you kind of want to help kids, or I guess people, like try to learn how to get those responses they want from players. Like I would love for every player to tell me like, I'm going to give me all the insight, like whatever. But obviously I know it's probably something very difficult to obtain. So instead I try to ask more like unique questions, or things like I asked Kendall Brown, actually, when you said like, oh, this guy wants to do an interview with you. One of the questions I asked him, I said, like, I heard Kenny Chandler said in a podcast, you play like video games like all day. So is that true? And that's what I asked him. Like, I know not many people are going to ask him that, but like, it would be awesome if I was getting all those really good, crazy responses. So what would be your like keys and tips if I'm trying to get like, really good, informative interviews from players?
So I would say you need to know 3 different things. You need to know what you need to watch the college basketball season and what they need from their player, because there's a reason why a certain player in high school is looking at that university. So for instance, when you look at, I just interviewed Bryce Hopkins, and he's going to Kentucky, and he's like a 2-3 guard. He's a big guard. And so it's knowing that Kentucky had an off year last year. So it's, what are you going to bring to the table? Like, what's your energy coming in next year, to get, and then they get excited about talking about that because they're talking about themselves. And then I would also say, you just need to know like their situation. So like with Amari Bailey, there's been rumors that he's going to reclassify and come up and join UCLA this year. And so it's knowing that and being able to say it in like a unique way where it's not just like, are you going to reclassify and join UCLA? It's more like, you saw what they did in the Final Four run. Peyton Watson and Will McClendon are coming in this year. Is that enticing to you to join the team next year? So once they realize that like, oh, all that information, they're going to be more comfortable opening it up. But if it's just like cut and dry questions, I find that players don't respond well to that because they've been asked it 1,000 times.
Yeah, that definitely is a smart approach. What would you say, like, because of course, it's one thing to get that information like on camera and on film, but also like, would you maybe say like, I guess a loophole to that is it's like just maybe ask them off the camera, like you kind of lessen them on the question a little bit, so where it's not.
Honestly, I get the best intel off camera. Like once you develop a rapport, and the thing with me is like, I don't want anything from these players. I've never asked anything from them. And I've never used any of my interviews as clickbait. It's always just been like, I'm here to help you as much as possible. Like, I want to elevate your status. I want to help get you recognition. I want to put you in front of your fans for your schools as much as possible. I want to help NBA teams be able to get like a good look at you at a younger age. And I'm going to make you look as good as possible. So as soon as they see that, they just warm up to you, and it becomes more, it's more of like a friendship instead of, like a media person and a player, and it's genuine. And I genuinely feel this, like I genuinely want the best for these players. And so there's a lot to be said for that. And I feel like they can read through whether or not you're trying to get something from them or you want the best for them.
So then like for a guy like me, cause I don't have like either like Yahoo or Rivals kind of behind my name. Like I'm just like an independent.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I can't really help out the players besides giving them interview experience with something that's not that big of a deal. Like, I mean, I really can't get these guys. Like I'm not going to hit up the handful of college coaches I know, like offer this kid. Like I'm not going to do that. So I can't really do much for the players technically. So what would be your advice to some, people kind of like me where I can't technically do much for the players besides just interview them and do media stuff?
Right. Not yet. You can't do much for them yet. Do you know what I mean? And as soon as you like, you grow because as soon as you start interviewing these players, college coaches are going to take notes. You start building the relationships with college coaches. And so once that starts happening, then more players will want to talk to you. And then once college coaches get engaged, then NBA teams will start coming. And so it all starts with like your hustle. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but like I talked to someone else like kind of in your space who's just trying to get out there. And like during quarantine, he was just like, I want to interview as many players as possible. And he hit up as many players on Instagram as possible. Yep. And all of a sudden, like players start to recognize that like, oh no, he's trying to make it, and they want to award that. So, then you become like the go-to for some breaking news on this player or this player, it never, like the fact that I work at Yahoo Sports means nothing to these guys. Like they know nothing. It's me being in the gym with them. That's what they recognize. And that's how like they reward me with like interviews and information, and I don't think it has anything to do with like my title or anything. Like it might restrict you from getting into events, but if you can find ways to interview these players or get a relationship with these guys, despite that, then that is what will help you in the long run. 100%.
Yeah. And it definitely is like it's definitely a long process for sure. Like I'm starting to see, like I guess things aren't getting easier, but different things are happening to me that weren't happening before. So yeah, I just know, at least I've heard, like, as long as you stay consistent, like,
Yes.
then I mean, I'm assuming it's gonna happen, because obviously, if I do what I'm doing right now, it's on a consistent basis, like it shouldn't be looking too bad. But I'm wondering something that I'm sure a lot of interviewers face. That one of the challenges is when I'm talking to these kids that are just very bad interviewees. They just don't, they just don't know how to talk. Even to, I feel like, a person, or I guess more, it takes them a longer time to open up to someone you don't know. And obviously, for some of your players, like, you're gonna have to interview someone the first time where they don't know you. So how do you kind of combat that, where you're talking to a player where they're just, they don't know you yet, so they haven't really opened up or anything?
Honestly, what I say to first-time interviewers, usually around their sophomore and junior year, I just say, okay, this isn't live. I'm going to make you look as good as possible. I'm going to throw highlights over it. Like any stumbles you do in the interview, I'm going to cut that out. And I'm like, this is just a fun interview. Like, I'm just going to ask you some questions. If you don't feel comfortable answering anything, that's fine. Like, it's not live. You can just not answer it and we'll cut it out. And I think that goes a long way, just like sitting them down prior to the interview and just talking to them like straight, like they're a human being. It's like, how are you? What I also do is I try to find the parents, if they're younger, before I interview them, and I introduce myself and I let them know who I work for and, why I'm interviewing your son, and if they feel comfortable with it. So the family's on board.
Yeah.
And it's worked out. I mean, honestly, like, you've probably seen my interviews. Like, I never try to like ask anything that is malicious or clickbait. Like, I'm trying to like humanize these players for the fans to get excited about. That's it. That's all you can do at the high school level. Like, again, when they're at the pro level and the college level and they've had media training, then the questions become a little bit more just, I don't know. They're just like, they're a little bit more advanced. Like, I'm trying to get some more answers from them. So, and they should be they're trained to do that by then. But at the high school level, you're just trying to like introduce them and get them excited about, and get them media trained. Like,
yep.
If they're a top 20 player in high school, this is going to be half their job, in 3 or 4 years. So that's all you can do.
Definitely. And just to kind of a couple more questions before we end this interview. One, something that I guess it's not really a challenge. Like, it's not like a too like big of a negative, but it's like, I'm doing this interview stuff, and then like I was my school's manager, like basketball, I based my whole room, like my room's basketball themed. Like, I can't escape basketball. So like when it kind of comes down, like when I have time to watch TV, I'm either watching like The Office or Friends, probably, because I'm not trying to watch basketball all day, every day. My Instagram basketball, my wallpaper, but like everything's basketball. So it's like I don't really follow the NBA, college, but like I don't really follow sports like that anymore, because I don't want it to get old. Like, you can't, like, I mean, that could definitely be too much if it's just all day cycle. Like, I love basketball as much as the next guy, but I don't love it where I definitely need my breaks for sure. So how do you kind of handle that, or are you just like completely basketball crazy where you don't need breaks ever?
Man, I'll tell you when my break is. I got a puppy who we've interrupted the interview with. Like, that is my break. But other than that, I mean, I know there's playoff games on tonight, and I've got to watch players that I covered in high school because I want to see them succeed, and I want to be able to like follow up with them and like send them a message letting them know how I thought they played. Or, it's one of those things where I like said to someone, I was like, oh, what's really suffered in my basketball career is my social life. And he goes, what do you mean? We're talking right now. It was with an agent. Yeah. And he goes, we're talking right now. That's social. He's like, this is the most social job you can have. You're in the gym, you're watching good basketball, and this isn't like a negative, like nothing's being taken away from you. It's more of like somebody is paying you to do the things you love, and for me, it's like I always, and I always want to be sure, that I have the right credibility. So like in my latest mock draft, I moved Jalen Green to number 1, and I wanted to make sure that I saw him before I moved him to number 1. So I went to LA, like I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. And so, and staying in the gym, otherwise like you lose credibility. So for me, I mean, I want to stay in my social life. I've got Taco Tuesday later tonight, bring my dog over. I'll see my nieces and nephews, but then I'm turning on basketball.
Yeah. So. I guess it's more different for me because again, I'm not this like adult where I now know a lot of players in the NBA college. So it's like for me to watch the NBA games, like
you don't need to yet. You wait.
I have been watching for fun, but it's like there's no real purpose for me yet. Like it's more if there's high school basketball on, then I should probably tune in. But yeah, so that's why like at least right now there's no
because start at the high school. Start at the high school level, develop those relationships, and then once they get to college and the NBA, you'll want to watch them.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I knew, like I'm going to play next year. Like there's a guy. I think you actually wrote the article on him, like the mock draft or whatever from I'm like it was based off like the Iverson Classic a little bit. I think Josh Minot you put in there.
Yes, I did.
I am so excited because he's been somebody like, I mean, we're not like best buds and he's terrible at responding to texts and stuff. He's like, hey, don't take it personal, but I'm probably never going to respond to any of your messages. But we've definitely spent a lot of time with each other because he lives in my area and I've helped like train him a couple of times. Like he's someone that I just love. Like I'm sure he doesn't like me too much, or he definitely has some high respect for me. But like I love the kid. Like I'm so excited to watch him play in college. Like it definitely is more of an incentive when you know the people playing to watch. Then it's a lot more easier. But
100%.
Like it's whatever. And just my final question is a good one to like wrap the whole thing up. Like just what would be your overall advice to people like me, or I guess young interviewers and basketball reporters that just want to kind of get that breakthrough and everything?
Stay in the gym. Stay in the gym. Be in the gym. Talk to as many players as you can. Talk to as many college coaches as you can, because once college coaches realize you're talking to these players, they're going to want to talk to you. And then once the players realize that you're talking to college coaches, they're going to want to talk to you and find out like what like availability and what space they have on the rosters. So that's been my biggest thing is just you stay in the gym, you grind out, you write as much as you can. Because in this life, it's like you can't just do video interviews. You have to be able to write, or you can't just write. You have to be able to shoot video and do video interviews. So just honing in on those skills, and like it will come to a time where people will recognize your work ethic and you will start to see fruition for your career. That's the best advice.
And that's why staying in the gym really is important, because even though it's like, showcase all your skills, put them all on social media, but it's like when you're in the gym, like I know people that have gotten jobs, like or I guess I know somebody, I'm sure there's more people too, but like I know people have gotten jobs not because they're the best, person that makes mixtapes, things like that, but because they were always there, like just to become a familiar face. Like, if I happen to see you again, let's say we never even networked, like you just saw my face, like we're now a recognizable face, and that just gives you more credibility. And like it really is just so important just to be like,
100%,
because then people are going to know who you are more and more often. So it's definitely great and valid advice for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I know, this was so fun. I'm so glad we did this.
Yeah, definitely. Well, anyways, I know it's Tuesday, so I guess Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. I got to make guacamole and get to my brother's house.
Yeah. All right. So I'll plug her Instagrams real quick. So, again, I really, really appreciate you for your time and doing this. Hope you have a great Taco Tuesday. But yeah, make sure you guys give us a follow on Instagram at Krysten Peak. And I'm at HoopsFL. And anyways, for basketball reporter for both Yahoo Sports and Rivals, Krysten Peak, I'm Isaac Fleischer, and this has been another HoopsFL interview. Peace out, guys.
Thanks, Isaac.